Songhees Nation begins its annual rates and expenditure law process in January of each year. When we receive the assessment roll from BC Assessment, then we can calculate how much taxes we can receive. Since Songhees has so many taxpayers that pay a minimum tax, we need to maximize our tax revenue. So we follow the standard of increasing tax rates by inflation. So the average tax bill increase matches inflation. So we use TAS, the Tax Administration System, to calculate that for us, and then we have the revenue figure that we have to work with for the year. Then we review our expenditures from the previous year. So in January, we're in the last quarter of the fiscal year. So we have 3 quarters of activity to review, and we see whether our expenditures from the current year are on par with our budget or up or down. And then we explore why. So we see whether we need to make adjustments in those areas. Then we review our service agreements to ensure that we've budgeted enough to cover the costs of the contracts that we have in place. Some of those contracts we receive on an annual basis, such as our comprehensive service agreement with the Capital Regional District for sewer and water, and we received that at about the same time as the assessment roll. Using the information that we gathered from a review of the previous year, we can calculate a proposed expenditure budget. We take that proposed budget and we work with the nation's senior finance officer to make sure that the local revenue budget and the nation's budget are aligned. We need to do this because there are services that we purchase from the nation, such as public works, road improvements, that sort of thing. And also because the nation draws on property tax dollars for some fundamental things that aren't covered in any other revenue stream. And that would be governance in particular, governance and administration. So local revenues supports governance and administration. So there is a feedback between the nation's budget and the local revenue budget. So we work through that process in the last 3 months of the fiscal year, so January, February, and March. We need to submit our budget for approval. We try to do that by early April so that we can get it through the Tax Commission and approved in time to issue tax notices on May 31st. There's lots of challenges a tax administrator can face. You're dealing with taxpayer issues, public services, you're dealing with the tax laws and standards. So it's a complex job, and there are a lot of things that can come up. So I recommend that people draw on their colleagues, the people that know best what's needed. The people that have the experience dealing with the same issues is your fellow tax administrators. The best way to reach that group is through the First Nations Tax Administrators Association. They meet annually in the fall, and it's an annual national forum. And they bring representatives from the fiscal institutes, so the First Nations Tax Commission, the Financial Management Board, and the First Nations Finance Authority. And there are others, such as BC Assessment, that attend, and they have a series of really helpful workshops. But the best thing about it is meeting with fellow tax administrators and just asking questions. How do you handle this? And making those contacts. So throughout the year, you have people that you can call and ask. Then there's also, of course, the FNTC, the First Nations Tax Commission. Each nation has some senior tax analyst assigned to them. So each First Nation has a person from the First Nations Tax Commission that's assigned to work with them to answer questions around standards and questions on the law. I would also recommend the Tulo Center for Indigenous Economics. The Tax Administration Certificate Program is invaluable for a tax administrator. A lot of really good information, but also you're meeting your colleagues in the class. And those are people that you can draw on throughout your career to ask questions.